I've got some
Definitely, yeah.
stuff I was gonna give you.
Ooh,
too,
got
just so
some
you have it.
goodies?
Yeah, I got some literature, a couple of buttons. We're very official. Got buttons.
Oh, nice. I love it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
looking into I was learning a bit about the House of Representatives, and there's the state representatives.
Yes.
But
Yes.
then there's the district representatives.
Yeah.
right?
And I'm running for federal Congress. So this
Oh,
is
you are
Washington,
going for
D.C.
federal.
Yes. So I've
big
been
leagues.
meeting, and I guess right. Yeah. Yeah. I've been meeting a lot of people though that are and I know a lot of the state reps, state senators. As I've been
wow.
going through this, and with Missouri being so Republican, typically it's like kind of rare sometimes when you find Democrats that are running in these far-reaching places. So, but I've been connecting with quite a few, and there's a lot of energy for people to like jump in right now, and
Wow.
which is good. But there's a lot of Republicans that run completely unopposed all across Missouri
Oh,
too.
I was wondering. Yeah, I saw
yeah.
the current representatives are Republican, except for like one or
Yeah.
two.
So right here in Jefferson City, so State House, right here in Liberty, we've got Marty Jacobs, who
Okay.
he was the only. He actually joined me at my town hall I had about 2 months ago for my campaign kickoff. It was at Heritage Hall right near, right by downtown.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, Marty came to that. Marty was the only Democrat to flip a Republican seat in the last election. So it's like we all know it's like at least for the Democrats, the last election was not great. So the fact that I keep telling him too, he's like my silver lining of like how the election went. So
How to make it happen.
Yeah. So yeah.
What was kind of your, and I was curious to know, because I'd probably classify myself, I kind of mentioned as like independent. I think a lot of my views are either one or the other, or they're like nuanced. I don't hear a lot. So I'm kind of curious to know what made you decide to run as a Democrat versus independent, Republican.
Yeah.
Kind of what was the catalyst to that?
Yeah, sure. I've always felt as though, like, I've always been a Democrat at heart.
Okay.
To me, the Democratic Party is a party of working people. It's a party of civil rights, Lyndon Johnson, like everything that was pushed through in the 60s. It's the party of health care, not just Obamacare, but, Medicare and Medicaid came from the Democrats. Democrats, I think, have always been kind of at the forefront of pushing back on a lot of the big, like, wealthy interests, and that's kind of what I see the Republican Party entirely as being. It's like big corporations, big billionaires, huge business, all of that. And for me, it's like, I'm working class. Like, I identify, I'm a working class person, and I think the Democrats are on the right side with working class issues, but then also a lot of the social issues, which the Republicans try and use to drive wedges with people all the time. And it's like, I talk to all sorts of people, and I think that in general, a lot of the feelings people have, like social tolerance, is pretty. There's a lot of people who are not socially tolerant, but I think there's a whole lot more that are. And so I think a lot of the Republicans' whole game plan is to try and use immigrants, LGBTQ plus community, and things like that to divide us. And that that doesn't sit right with me either. So
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot to it, but I think the Democrats are more like the party of the people. To tell you the truth.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm interested to hear that, because for me, like, I've kind of flip-flopped back and forth on as far as the candidates I like or kind of how I self-identify politically. When you say the party for the rich, like, from my opinion and kind of what I see is, they're both kind of that way, because
Fair.
in order to get anywhere with politics, is at least like at the top, you need to have lobbying and you need to have a lot of backing and you need to get out there. So, would that be fair to say that it is obviously on both sides, they have big supporters of billionaires, right?
Oh, yeah, the big money is absolutely on both sides.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that
making sure that's fair to say.
Oh, it is totally fair to say, yes.
Yeah.
But I think what's important to remember too is that right now in the White House, this is the richest cabinet in all of White House history. Like our government's history, this is the richest cabinet. It's full of billionaires, people, probably the person with the lowest net worth that sits in President Trump's cabinet is going to be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So what they're doing, like, and that's who's in charge of our government right now. So they're the ones pulling the levers, and so the way I see it, the big money interest, the big billionaire interest is they're who's in charge of the Republican Party, and that's just who is the Republican Party. It's like we saw with, I don't know how much you pay attention to it, but SNAP, like food stamps and everything, that they literally took it to the Supreme Court to argue against having to pay out SNAP benefits to people, hungry kids, hungry seniors, like that's sort of, that I think is a really good representation of the current administration and who they are as people. There's like Trump's down in Mar-a-Lago having these big Great Gatsby parties and like, these lavish things.
I saw the memes.
Yeah, right. And it's like they're literally doing that while they're fighting at the Supreme Court to not feed hungry kids. So it's like I have a hard time balancing that with the Republican Party, to tell you the truth.
Interesting. Yeah, I know that in the last election, Kamala raised a lot more money, got a lot more donations, had more support from billionaires.
I see what you're saying.
So, yeah, I mean, but I see what you're saying, too. So well, I do feel like it's kind of just the way the government's ran. And a lot of the, obviously, like, and I love one thing you said about term limits.
Yes.
I read all your things on your website, and how, like, on both sides, like, people will stay in office for 30, 40, 50 years, lifetime politicians, which it wasn't originally meant to be, lifetime jobs. So, I mean, I definitely see what you're saying on the Republican side, but I do feel like it's fair to mention, like, it's kind of just, I mean, people say, like, the real runners of the country are these big corporations and like the people pulling the strings.
No, it's true.
Lobbying for
the big money is such an issue we have right now in like the whole government. That's how. So I'm a working class person. So it's like my architect. Yes, exactly. Awesome. I got my own business with my wife. She's also an architect. Her name's Carly. Yeah. Oh, wow. We met when we were getting our education, our master's, and then she's a licensed architect as well. So I work with her every day. I think she's about the smartest architect in like all of Missouri. I'm very fortunate to work with her. And so that's kind of where our shared connection came from. But we're small business owners, kind of trying to make our way. And I've worked in the Kansas City area for quite a while. But at the end of the day, it's like I've seen massive projects, like $1 billion plus developments, like mega projects, and you see like who those are for, the tax breaks that the government, whether they're state and local or federal, like puts into these projects. And it's something that I hear what you're saying as far as there's money in both parties, absolutely. And so for me, I'm like, well, that's partly why I want to get involved, because it's like I am not beholden in these ways. My support has been grassroots, as they call it. So it's like I've raised more money for my campaign to this point, a year out or so, than the previous challenger. She did a great job, but the previous challenger to the Republican I'm running against, I've raised more at this point than she did through the general election. So there's a lot of grassroots support there. Like I've taken no corporate money, no PAC money, nothing like that. So and part of that is the nature of running as a Democrat in Missouri, where there's not a lot of money for Democrats in Missouri.
True, it's pretty heavy.
Right, yeah, it's heavy, yeah. So, but I see that as a great opportunity. It's like we're building huge support. Like everything is growing and continuing to grow, and we're getting that grassroots level to do it. So, when I think when we have higher amounts of engagement at events, more people are coming out. I think, and I talk to a lot of people too that have been Republicans their whole lives, and they're coming out to political events for the first time to listen to the Democrats. So it's like the Republicans have been talking this whole, like, they're the party of farmers, they're the party of but really they're the party of punching down on immigrants, punching down on LGBTQ plus people, and trying to get the big money interests in the meantime to get as much money out of our economy for themselves. That's the way I see it. So I'm hoping to kind of lead by example with what I see as the vision of what the Democratic Party should be, moving forward too. So
I can definitely, so 2 points you mentioned, which would be interesting to talk about. First of all would be immigration. So my dad was born in Mexico, so immigrant, right?
Yeah.
Came from Mexico to the United States, built a better life, right? My grandpa kind of initiated that move originally, had to come over illegally first and make some money, went back. He's legal now, so ICE, don't go to his house. He's legal now. However, I definitely, it's like, I think my views, and I actually talked to one of my friends, Miranda, about this, and she's pretty far, like, Democrat side, right? And I'm like, I kind of do see the point of deporting illegals, because you don't really, like, know who they are, but I don't agree with, like, the methodology that they're doing.
Yeah, I see what
because
you're saying.
in my opinion, like if you find this guy who's illegal, you run his records, you look at his track record, he's a working guy, he has a family,
Right.
he's just a normal dude, but now if he's committing crimes and causing violence, that's one
Sure,
thing. But
sure.
I feel like just our system is a little broken. Like I don't agree with just opening it all up either.
Right.
Because you're not a country without borders.
I would agree.
I'm kind of in the middle on that.
So,
how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, and I hear what you're saying. So I think that most people would agree that being here legally, as they say, is like that's the only way to do it, right? However, several points. So this deportation that they want to do, they want to deport 5% of the population of the entire country. Like that's how many people they're looking to deport. An astronomical amount. And so when we're talking that much humanity that they're looking to deport, it's a humongous cost, right? Like it costs a lot of money to implement something like this, like huge amounts. I mean, that's why they're pouring billions and billions of dollars into the concentration camps. We need to call it what it is in Texas. They're also doing it up here at Leavenworth, like on military bases. They're building detainment centers. We saw it with Alligator Alcatraz. These are huge amounts of money that they're pouring into these things. However, at the same time, the judicial system. So they've basically cleaned out the immigration courts. They've defunded them. They've taken judges off of the cases, and they've basically understaffed that portion of the judicial system. So yes, I agree. Yeah, we don't want if someone's here and they're committing crimes. Sure, yeah, we need to address that. But that starts with the bedrock of our country, which is our constitutional system, which guarantees people the right to a trial. How do we know that they're a criminal? How do we know even that they're here, what their legal status is, without going through the process at the courts first? It's due process. So the issue is that they are deliberately undermining the judicial system and basically then saying, if we want to get through all of these tens of millions of immigration cases, then it's going to take so long, we can't possibly get through that many in a reasonable amount of time. Okay, well that doesn't mean you get to ignore due process and the Constitution in the meantime. Search and seizure, I mean, they're searching and seizing people with no warrants. There's no due process when it comes to trials. They're just throwing them right into detainment, right? There is cruel and unusual punishment. They're just taking people and they're deporting them off to places like El Salvador and the mega prisons. So it's like, I think that everybody would agree there's an issue that needs to be solved, but I think following the Constitution sounds pretty good to me, and also being humane. I think that they've kind of taken it upon themselves, the Republicans and the Trump administration, to try and unilaterally solve a problem, and they see the Constitution and sort of the legal constraints as a hindrance to them wanting to fix something, but that's not how the Constitution works. You can't just pick and choose, when you want to follow it. It applies to everybody at all times. So that's a lot of my bones to pick. There needs to be a pathway to citizenship, and I absolutely think that we can do that, but it also has to go through Congress, and it has to be codified into a real law. That's part of the problem, is that we have even under Obama, I mean, every president has taken stabs at doing things with immigration. But the next president then can come in and undo it or do it whatever they want to, So it's like every 4 to 8 years, it's just all of this. If we had something that was codified, agreed to, which Congress has come very close to.
Really?
Very close
bipartisan
to.
support?
Bipartisan. Under
cool.
It was President Biden within the last few years. There was a Republican senator, I think it was Langford, out of Oklahoma. He created a whole, he was the one spearheading this bipartisan legislation through the Senate, which is notoriously hard to get advancement through, right? They had the agreement, and Trump was literally making calls out of office, because he was not president at that point, making calls to undermine the deal, because the Republicans benefit when there's no solution. Because if the problem is solved, what are they going to run on? How do they divide people, when it comes to immigration? So there's a lot.
Both sides, unfortunately.
Sure, yeah. And I'm coming at it from my perspective, right?
True.
And I recognize, too, I mean, there's huge faults with the Democratic Party, right? I understand that. The Epstein list, like, that's a whole nother topic, right? If there's Democrats in that,
that's interesting.
I don't want them to be in the party, right? This is our part. Like, we're making the party in our image moving forward. And so if there's issues and baggage in the past, we'll take care of that, right? It's like we'll move past it in advance. Like that's I think the idea.
Definitely, yeah. I think that, like, when you mentioned, to speak on the immigration thing, like, the legal way is a little unrealistic for most people that are wanting to come here, that are good people. They have skills. They want to be a part of America. And I think that you're right. That is one of the fundamental issues. I know a lot of the, immigration like judges right now are caught up on deportation versus immigration. So I definitely hear that problem.
Yeah.
Like, I do wish, I think it's close to like 100,000 now. I don't know the price to like legally go through the process, but it takes a long time. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I agree that I wish we could, I think most people would agree that on both sides that, if there's good people that want to come here and contribute to America, like that's great. I mean, we're built on immigrants.
Right. Yes.
So I hope we can find just make it easier. I don't know.
And if you've been here for 20 years, that's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and a lot of people do, even if they don't have legal status, they're paying into taxes they don't see back, right?
True.
Like there's people who are doing, and it's not everybody. There's people that do those. So I think that it's on us too to identify that and identify too that we've had a broken immigration system for so long that it's possible that you are here for 20 years, without legal status, but you're still functioning within American culture that way. So, if you're not committing crimes, if you're, contributing to your community, like, you have kids, your kids are in school. I mean, you're making America better. That's what makes America great is our immigrant core. I really truly believe that, and so I think we need to have, give people a chance to participate in that, especially if they're already here, and they're doing good things. So
for sure, I think that one thing that's interesting that is going to be a key factor, in the success of America that I don't know if a lot of people are aware of, but are you aware of like the birth rate?
Yes.
The replacement rate problem?
Yes.
We see it in Japan. Pretty rough.
Yeah, it
pretty rough.
It's true, and we see it kind of as a microcosm of that too in rural places. So where I'm running is it's the 6th district, so it's basically the northern third of the entire state. So it goes from the Missouri River to the Mississippi River, the whole border of Iowa. It's 39 counties, so it's absolutely enormous. So you start looking at a lot of these rural issues are magnified in rural places, especially. So. Yeah, I definitely. That is one interesting thing about sort of running in this particular district is we've got just such an urban built-up area in North Kansas City, plus all of these rural stretches, everywhere in between. So, and rural places tend to feel the brunt of bad federal policy more so and quicker than a lot of the urban areas do. But particularly with there just being less people.
Yeah.
And in a lot of rural places too, the population is aging. So
that's the issue.
And and then how do you pass down the family farm? Is there someone to pass it to? Is a business viable for your kids or grandkids to even take over? I mean, there's so much of that. So
who takes care of the elderly? Like, if
right.
There's no kids.
So demographics, I agree. It's like it's a huge problem in America. I mean, that's one of the greatest parts about it is everyone wants to be here. So why would we not take advantage of letting these great people in who want to be part of America and want to contribute? I mean, that's the American dream to me.
For sure.
And it's a way of addressing things like the birth rate issue, which is an issue, and population growth. Because you're right. We don't want to turn into Japan, where they're having some big issues. And I mean, when they age and healthcare costs go up, and then you have a bigger portion of your younger population caring for the older I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. Birth rate, that's a whole other topic we could talk about too. But immigration would be a great way to help with that.
It would, because obviously we're so used to. The reason value goes up is because there's constantly been more buyers. So you have to build more houses, value goes up, there's more people to invest money. So that's how you build the economy. But if it goes the other way and all of a sudden the pool of house buyers is lower, the pool of college students is lower, the pool of people paying taxes is lower, and the pool of them utilizing things like, Medicare and whatnot gets higher, it's definitely an economic issue that I do think if we could have a better immigration policy to encourage it more would be a way to at least dampen it for some time. Because we need people. I mean, you need people to do anything.
Yeah, and there's different ways of getting people to and helping the population grow. Because it's like, it's the way to get people to be able to live, especially in rural places, but everywhere. It's like, is there a hospital where I can have a baby? How are the schools if I want my kids to go to the school system? Are there jobs? Like I need to be able to work somewhere, right? So there's and housing. I mean, do I have somewhere to actually live that I can afford? There's so many factors that if we can address those, and we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time as America, we can address these things. That's what's going to help the birth rate too. It's not just immigration, but there's a lot of other factors that can go into it. Not like, I mean, they're talking about, giving money to families that are going to have children. I mean, maybe that's a step in the right direction too, because it's very expensive, but access to childcare. I mean, you have kids too, right?
I got 3.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I got 4. So yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy.
It's expensive, man.
Oh
it's
my
very
goodness.
Expensive.
Yeah,
it's very expensive.
How old are yours?
Yeah, so I got 4, 6, soon to be 7, and 9.
Oh, nice.
So,
yeah,
all
okay.
boys.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, that's a busy house. I bet. Yeah, I got 4, so I've got 3 younger boys. I got a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Okay.
And my oldest is my girl. She's 7. So.
Oh yeah, right around the same age.
Yeah, right in there.
It's a great thing.
I know. I love it. It's like it makes life worth living.
Like,
I know.
I get me the happiest and the angriest.
Yeah, I know, right? It is funny. Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
I joke about people like with politics sometimes too. It's like you get people have a lot of passions and stuff, and understandably, in political conversations. But it's like I can get yelled at by my 4-year-old or my 2-year-old. It's like it kind of becomes relative.
No, it definitely gives you a better scale. Like I always say with business or whatever, I'm like I'm never gonna really be mad at you. I only really get mad at my kids. So.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
like, we can disagree or whatever, but to be really angry, like probably my kids. So that's funny. Yeah,
it's true.
Kids are a great thing. I know kind of the perspective on kids has been interesting, like politically, but just like in the news cycle, and even with my peers. Like I'm 27, so I hear a lot like, oh, I don't want to have kids because of XYZ, and my opinion has always been like, usually you just have kids and then you'll figure it out. So,
yeah.
I mean,
sure. I know what you mean with that. Yeah.
You're never really going to be like, I'm ready.
Right. Oh, I know exactly. It's like when you go from like, too, it's like you go from 2 kids to 3 kids. Ooh. It's like you're on man-to-man and you go to like a zone offense, and it's like, that's definitely a different scheme. But yeah, you adjust and you figure it out as you go. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
That's interesting. You made me think when you're talking about rural areas like that you're campaigning in. Obviously, they're going to be heavily Republican.
Yes and no.
So you're going to probably have to get out there. You're probably going to be getting out there and in person, right?
Oh,
and
yes.
Speaking to them.
Yes.
And
yeah, that's kind of been the bedrock of my campaign. So I've been doing this now since it was late March, so about 7-8 months. I put about 4,000 some miles on the car.
Oh wow!
I think I've done about 30 different speaking engagements at this point. So I'm trying. Like that's the thing is that so the guy I'm running against, Sam Graves, he's a Republican. He's been in since 2001. Whoa. He has not had a long time. That's that career politician thing that I'm not a fan of.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And he came from the Missouri State House before that. So he says he's a farmer. Basically, all he has done in his adult life is be a professional politician. That's how that goes. But getting out into rural places is huge, especially with this being such a massive district. He does not. So he hasn't had a town hall in over a decade. He refuses to at this point, and he's telling people it's like, oh, security, this, that, and the other, which, of course, things need to be taken in consideration, but using that as an excuse for not engaging with your constituents for half of your congressional career, to me, is not okay.
Crazy,
There's ways of figuring it out, But yeah, I've been trying to show up everywhere. I mean, I've been out to Hannibal. I've been in Maryville and everywhere in between.
Oh, wow.
Shelbina, Monroe City, Marceline, Troy, you name it, like all over the place. And I feel like that's kind of what we need as really any political party, but Democrats especially, is to go out into these places and talk with people, see them in person, listen to their concerns in person that deal with their area that they live in, because like the concerns of somebody that lives in Shelbina is going to be different than someone who lives in Gladstone. It's like these are, and they're probably similar in a lot of ways too. But how do we know that without going out and actually seeing them in person and talking to them? So showing up and trying to be in person is kind of the bedrock of a lot of the strategy with my campaign. And so far, it seems like it's working out pretty well. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, good reception everywhere. And like I said, too, there's a lot of people who say, like, I've been a Republican my whole life, and this is my first Democrat meeting I've ever been to. I've heard a lot of people say, like, a surprisingly large amount of people say that,
Heck yeah.
And especially, too, I mean, everyone has the stereotype that like rural places, farming communities they're going to be pro-Trump, right? But
statistically,
but the thing is what's really interesting right now is like if you drive around in a lot of these rural counties, a lot of the highways where you would have Trump, Trump, Trump signs all up and down it, they're all coming down now. It's like you'll have a few diehards, but I think people are having a harder and harder time feeling supportive outwardly with all their Trump merchandise and all of that. Because when you look at your receipt at the grocery store, or when your hospital is shutting down, or your nursing home where mom or grandma is, staying, gets shut down because they cut down Medicaid, it's like, how can you support that, So there's a lot of issues that are really facing everybody in the entire district. So it's been a great experience just trying to learn from people and figure out how can we fix it,
Yeah, I think, I want to go back to, or kind of regarding what you said about career politicians, and I do really feel like, when I look at candidates, when I hear people, it's like, man, I wish we had some fresh blood in here, man, because,
yes.
Fresh blood, fresh people is fresh ideas. And obviously someone like yourself who is, actually, working class, entrepreneur, business owner, you've definitely felt a lot of the actual issues, struggles that everyone has felt, right? Versus someone like you said, Graves, who's been in there for 20, 30 years, they're kind of isolated from it. So how do you, what could that look like? What is your, or do you have a vision or kind of an idea of what that would look like for term limits? 'Cause I feel like even my Republican friends, and they I think it's kind of agreed on, a lot of people agree on that. So how would that look?
Yeah, I think the people who disagree with it the most are the career politicians.
The ones in there.
Yeah. So that's part of the problem, right? And they just, once you get in too, there's the corporate money starts rolling in, and the special interests. And, oh my goodness, yeah. So
it's great.
And so my philosophy with running and trying to participate in politics, and it's a different career for me in the sense of, I do buildings, so this is a new line of work, right? So I see so much of the problems of what we have in both, Democrat and Republican Party, of the fact that we have a bit of a gerontocracy right now, meaning there's a lot of, and the seniors are like, I need seniors for their experience and understanding their lived experience and how can we make this world better for the future going forward. But like Nancy Pelosi, she's retiring, great career, that's fantastic, but I was shocked too, 20 terms. That's 40 years, right? That's a long time in the government. And it's such a long time. And it's almost like there's generationally the boomer generation is in power, and they still have been. Yeah, and like their kids and like the next generations, like the passing of the baton, passing of the torch, that hasn't really happened in a lot of ways. So, I do agree we need fresh blood. And I think too that a lot of what I think would be the most successful political career in a lot of ways would be being able to find other people around too that share the similar interests and ideologies and goals for the future and making Missouri better, making America better. Like, what is that image? And then helping to build those people up as well and bring everyone up together. Because I think if I got to the end of a career, I won't be 80 in the house, right? I won't. But let's say it's like if you do get to that point and you don't have either a person or several people that you feel like you've got on the bench that are like, wow, I know if I retire, we've got great voices, great people here, and they're going to continue carrying this on. I would see if I didn't have that, that'd be a bit of a failure, right? Because the whole purpose of this is to build it so that the future can then take it and keep running with it,
Hopefully better.
Hopefully, exactly. Like we always want to be getting better. So, I definitely, I think we need term limits too. We need term limits in Congress, and I also think too a lot of the proposals people have for the Supreme Court would be really good. We need to change that a bit too. I think
there's no limit for that.
It's lifetime appointment.
Oh wow.
So
dang.
Right, and the issue is that then when you get someone like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she died right after, or I guess it was Obama was in office, right? He was trying to replace her with Merrick Garland, and they refused to, the Republican Senate, which is where those confirmations happen. Mitch McConnell refused to have the hearings and refused to initiate the process because they said this is within 1 year of a presidential election. They wanted to see who won. Was it going to be Hillary or Trump? And whoever won that election, they were going to be the ones to pick the Supreme Court justice. So the issue is,
delayed it.
And then it becomes becomes politicized, it becomes ideological. Whether or not we have a conservative or a liberal court, like, that's a problem, because they are supposed to, that's the judicial branch. They're not supposed to have these, ideologies that are steering us towards Christian nationalism, right? Or like they need to be true to the Constitution and true to the laws of America, not to what their ideologies are.
Either party.
Right.
I see. They should be unbiased as possible.
Right. So I think that, long term,
that's
we should,
interesting.
and structurally too. So we have 9 Supreme Court justices, and we've had that since the end of the Civil War. The population is over 10 times larger now in America than it was at this point. So I think that we should look at growing the court a bit to better reflect sort of the structure of the judiciary, bumping up to 13 justices, which actually aligns with the appellate court structure beneath it. Everything would feed up a little bit better, I think. And then there's some interesting proposals I've seen too, which would basically take the Supreme Court terms, instead of being lifetime, they would go 18 years, and then there would be a 2-year cycle of replacement, which would mean that for every 4-year presidential term, you would have 2 justices that president would get to pick in that term. Every president would be guaranteed 2 Supreme Court picks, because it would be on a regular schedule. It would take some time to work through the lifetime appointments we currently have to build that system up, but it would depoliticize it. So I think that, term limits overall, and people making a career out of being in government, it leads to corruption. It leads to, and not just financial, moral corruption. I mean, it's bad. So
I think everybody would agree with that.
Well, and like Sam Graves, who I'm running against, I mean, so he's been in since 2001. He's the chair of the House Transportation and
3 years
Infrastructure.
old in 2001.
Right, it's a while.
It's a long time.
And he's been in so long, and then it's like he's the chair of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and there's millions of dollars going to the Tarkio airport, where he's happens to have his private plane collection, right?
Oh, wow.
And they happen to write in like things like in this big beautiful bill, like tax provisions, where it's like, now you can write off the cost of your private planes like the year you buy them, rather than treating it as a depreciating asset.
Oh, wow.
More money in the pocket of private plane owners like Sam Graves, which we all know they need, right? Is probably more money. Like, it's just the focus is, it just becomes so skewed. Just like what you're saying, it's like they get into that position for so long, and they lose connection with the you and the I. It's like those of us down here on planet Earth that aren't just flying up overhead in our private planes. So it's just a different world.
There's definitely too like a degradation of your like mental acuity over time, and that's just a fact. Like, I'm really into chess.
Yeah.
And I think most chess players hit their prime around like 30, 32 years old.
That's
because after that, you know, that's like the perfect balance of crystallized knowledge and fluid intelligence. Funny enough, the best speed players in chess are usually only like 18.
Interesting.
To 15. Their brains are faster.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of, that's how, to me, and it kind of shows it's like there's no top level chess players that are 60. So why are the people running the country?
Yeah. Well,
like,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
Like, if you can't be the best chess player, you can be the best leader of the country. It's kind of a weird.
I completely agree. Well, that's the thing. So it's like, I'm an architect, right? If I wanted to, I could keep my firm open and keep doing business, until I'm in my 80s or 90s. Because if I can have my business and I can support it and do my work, great, congratulations. But when you're talking like what you're saying, a government role where your vote in the House or, the Senate, wherever, so many people depend on you.
You're leading the free world.
This is my sad fact too from this year. 3 Democrats have died in the House of Representatives this year.
Oh, I know.
Of old age, right? Other complications. Rest in peace. And that's bad. Like that's not good. But the big beautiful bill, Trump's signature piece of legislation, passed out of the House of Representatives by 2 votes.
Oh, and
so that's the thing.
Did they get replaced? Or,
well, that's the thing, is that they got to have special elections. There's processes. So when your margins are so thin in these governing bodies, 1 vote, 2 votes can make a humongous difference, And that's not saying they wouldn't have been able to pass these big pieces of legislation out, purely partisan legislation out. But when you're having to fight for 1 or 2 more votes, that can make a big difference, So it's an interesting problem that is really in all aspects of our government. It's like the experience is wonderful. We need it. However, I do strongly believe that a lot of that experience needs to learn how to step aside and pass the baton and make sure that we are going to be prepared to take on the world, that they're leaving behind for us. Otherwise, what was all this for? What are you doing it for?
Or even an age limit, like you said, if you were to own if you keep owning your firm, you're going to hire fresh architects.
Most likely, yeah.
You're going to develop them. You're going to eventually, or maybe your children, or who knows, right?
Sure,
But once you're 80, you're probably not even going to want to.
It depends, yeah. And there's some architects that have worked into very old
really?
age. Oh, yeah. Wow. Well, that's a nice thing with it. It's it's kind of a desk job, so it's you can kind of use your brain, and you get that knowledge that gets built up over your career, and it's and you become very valuable for your experience, but it's totally different, and you can do that with government too, but that's the thing, is that government is for us, by us. It's for everybody. So if you are depending on somebody with 40 years of experience in a position in the House as the only person who can understand a law or a process, then that process maybe is a bit of a failure, because the general population needs to be living by that too. It's we all have to live with it. So I think government is one of those things. And age limits would be very tricky, but it's I don't know, even 75, 80.
That's pretty up there.
That's up there, but it's and you'd cut a noticeable portion of Congress out if that was the age limit.
That's what's crazy.
That's what's crazy.
It's
and the presidency, that's what's baffling to me too.
True. How old is Trump? How old is Biden and Trump?
So
80?
Biden was the oldest president ever. Okay. Trump is a couple years younger than Biden, but by the end of Trump's term,
he's 78 or something.
He's something Trump will be the oldest president ever at the end of his term. So,
is that right?
Yeah, because it's with the 4-year cycle. So Biden is the oldest right now, but as soon as Trump has a birthday or two more, as he's still in office for this 4-year chunk, he will be the oldest ever. So that's the thing that's kind of tough too.
Really
is a lot of young people, all they've known are these
geezers.
Very old. Yeah, I mean, it's just at the presidency, which is, I was really, the first president I got to vote for was Obama in 2008. Okay. It was great, it's felt, I was younger too, and it's you feel wow, this world, we're really making these big advancements, first black president, this is huge. But then you see, the backlash to it over time too, and now we've got just I would say when you're a certain age, what President Biden, or especially Trump in this case, it's you're saying, your mental sharpness is not there.
Just can't be, yeah.
And you're president. It needs to be there. There's no, we don't have the...
You have the nuclear button.
No off days for you. Sorry, Yeah. It becomes
a
danger to the rest of us. And you don't have to... You're purely governing on your most short-term thinking, because you don't care.
That's a good point, because you're not going to be around in 20, 30 years.
You don't have to deal with it. That's one of the reasons I liked President Carter, Jimmy Carter. He was around for a long time after his presidency, President Obama, George W. Bush had his faults, but isn't it funny, we look back too in a lot of ways with him as far as a Republican president go, oh baby, wasn't that bad. Crazy how relatively.
That is crazy.
But he's still around, it's they're still here, and they have to, I think having to live with your decisions in leadership is enormously important, for leaders to have to do, because otherwise all you care about is that short-term gain,
Yeah, there's not really an existential risk if you're, 80, you're how much more do I got? And the founding fathers were actually very young.
Right.
People don't know that sometimes, but they were, because in the pictures they look old, they got the wigs and the makeup, but no, they were very young.
Yeah, well, age is crazy with government, because it's the constitutional requirement to go into the House of Representatives is you have to be 25.
Right.
I'm 35. So it's I'm 10 years older than that, and I would seem like I would be one of the youngest members of Congress, right? There's several other that are younger. But it's really interesting. It's we've kind of gotten used to almost having 70s and 80-year-olds in Congress and the White House, because that's all we've had for quite a while now.
Especially with the way technology is, and just it's good to have someone who kind of understands that. I think a lot of them would probably be troubled to try to prompt ChatGPT.
It'd probably be using email. A lot of them can't use email. It's what we think is a simple, basic thing. It's that's advanced technology that wasn't really around while they were doing a lot in their earlier careers. So why bother now? You're in Congress. You should know. You should.
Yeah, you should. I saw one of your other speaking. Of topics. I saw one of your things was about the Second Amendment, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
It seems like you're definitely pretty like moderate on that as far as your Second Amendment beliefs. So
yeah, I mean,
how do you kind of feel about that?
So,
like, what's your...
how I see the Second Amendment is, it's incredibly important because it's like, to me, without having the Second Amendment, like, I would consider the behavior of Trump in the White House as to be similar to that of a tyrant in a lot of ways. And what I mean by that, sounds harsh.
I gotta hear about that.
Sure, it sounds harsh, but what I mean by that is that he's deploying the military to American cities. Like, can you if President Obama had done that,
Detroit?
He's doing it to like Washington D.C., Portland, Los Angeles. They're using the U.S. military for immigration raids, domestic law enforcement. That's not the usage of the military, and not to mention too. I mean, they don't think. The White House, I think, doesn't believe that they're constrained under any sort of laws, because when the Supreme Court came out and said that the president is basically immune from any criminal, liability whatsoever, right? So he's taken that now, like, for example, what they're doing with the drug boats. So they say the drug boats around Venezuela. I don't know if you've seen that. They're just blowing up fishing boats, drug boats, right? All over. And now they're doing it in the East Pacific, too. So the issue with that is you get a president and a military behind our military behind that president, and he starts using it in ways that, in my opinion, are highly abusive. I think that having a strong Second Amendment means that the government will always know that there are really, probably, in my opinion, too many weapons. There's a lot of weapons. There's a lot of firearms in America. That is what it is, But where I always go with the Second Amendment is, and I've talked with a lot of people who are very supportive of the Second Amendment, they feel the exact same way. Yes, it's important, but guns are the number one killer of children in America. It's not disease. It's not accidents. It's not, you name it. It's guns. So when, I've got kids in school, it's like having kids in school thinking about school shootings and like the dangers that, Columbine happened when I was young, but I was kind of coming through school at that point where the school shootings and things like that happen today are obviously so much worse now than they were. So, we had an assault weapons ban in the 1990s that did statistically reduce firearm deaths. But the thing is that, what a lot of people who talk about the Second Amendment as though you can't modify or regulate our rights, those people who might call themselves originalists in some ways when it comes to the Constitution fail to recognize that the language of the Second Amendment literally says a well-regulated militia. The right to bear arms and in a well-regulated militia. And I have my pocket constitution. I can reference the language if you want to see it. But the point is short and sweet. But the point is that in our Constitution is baked into this expectation, in my opinion, that there is the ability for the Second Amendment to be regulated. And I think when you have something like, the fact that children are dying by guns more than anything else is a fairly clear-cut reasoning to me that, while this is good to have, it needs to be regulated because, the kids aren't going to be able to get into Congress and pass their own laws to make it so that they stop dying from guns. So I think it's on us to do that. So, that's sort of where I come from with the Second Amendment.
To push back a little on the guns being the number one thing, it would depend on at what point you classify them as a kid. Because there are a lot more abortion deaths than there would be gun deaths, for sure.
I'd have to look at that. I'm not sure if that would be the case.
I'm pretty positive.
I'll have to look at that. It's interesting. Right. Well, but either way, so that's the thing, though, too, is it's like, are you...
How many deaths, do you know how many deaths there would be a year? Because I'm pretty surprised to hear that's... I'd have to look into that, too.
Yeah, look into it for sure. Because, the statistics off the top of my head, I don't... off the top of my head, I don't know the numbers.
Okay.
But that's my understanding. And,
And
abortion, that's a whole topic too.
True.
But
different topic.
Right.
That's what I was imagining, a heavy right person saying.
And that's
would reference the abortion.
Yeah,
but,
which is and that's a whole conversation we can have too. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good one too. But I definitely think that there is enormous room for improvement with the Second Amendment in America. I don't think that taking guns, from people, as they like to say, is necessarily the It's not that it isn't the answer. It's just that I don't know if that would be the right approach, because I think though that making criminalizing certain activities, holding people liable, like if there is a school shooting, like how did this person get the gun? Like if they're a minor, is this happening? Holding people to account for safe storage and safe handling of firearms. I mean, there's sort of some of these fundamental basics that I think we could focus on of both upping the stakes of if these are going to be abused, and also just promoting just general safety and well-being around firearms. Every Second Amendment person that I've talked to that would identify themselves as say like they're very pro Second Amendment will also say yes. I mean, gun safety, like responsible firearm ownership is like a core part of firearm safety in the Second Amendment as a right. And so there's things that I think that we can do as a government to help incentivize it. But there's a lot of room for improvement, I think, when it comes to the Second Amendment.
You're not like, no guns. You're just like, we need to make sure we have some rules around it. So I think that's fair.
Yeah, I don't think we could necessarily say no guns, because frankly, I don't, I also, I hear too, it's like in Ukraine when Russia invaded, right? The government was having to pass out a lot of firearms to citizens, but it's like, one of the Abraham Lincoln quotes from like back, a Civil War era, he talked about how if America would ever be invaded, it would take 1,000 years for them to reach and try and take a drink out of the Mississippi River based on our firearms. And that was back then, right? So I think that it's part of the identity of America, and I get that. But there's a lot of room for improvement just based on the fact that, I think that too many children are dying because of it, and there's too many preventable deaths that happen because of it. And there's ways that we absolutely can address it. And a lot of times the people who are pushing back the most against those things are the ones who are getting the most money from the lobbies. It's like it's pretty easy to connect the dots, I think.
It's definitely a hot topic. I'm always interested to look into statistics, which I've done I actually wrote a report about it in college on gun violence. If you take away police and like high criminal activity areas from the U.S., we're actually one of the we're pretty low per capita on gun violence. And if you look at countries that are really heavy on gun regulation, very heavy on gun regulation, like you basically can't have a gun, which is not what you're saying.
Right, yeah, no, I'm not.
But on the other end of it, they actually have a higher, even including that, they have a higher per capita violence rate.
Interesting.
Like New Zealand, I'm pretty sure, because they're pretty heavy on no guns.
Right, yeah.
They actually have a higher per capita average for the country on violence, and especially in America, if you take out the worst areas,
Interesting, yeah.
Prospect, St. Louis,
okay, yeah.
Chicago. So I think that's interesting to me because I look at guns. So I actually had an experience when I was 9 or 10. Someone actually broke into my house. I was home alone with my brother.
Oh, jeez.
I started shooting when I was about 3, and I actually knew where the gun was at. I ran to the gun. I saw him coming through the window. Hey, I have a gun. Don't come in. I'll shoot. They took off. Found out later it was my dad's ex. So, whoa.
Interesting.
Twisted. Crazy. But anyway, so the way I look at it, and one of the first things I bought my current wife, was only wife, but just my current partner. Current wife, 27. Was, speaking of that, actually, my ring fell off when I was doing painting someone's house, actually. But
have to get a new one.
A random tangent. But yeah, I look at it like an equalizer because, I bought my wife a gun. One of the first things I bought her, taught her how to shoot a few months into dating, because the way I look at it is, you hear it's a way to defend yourself, I guess, to where you'll have an equal playing ground, hopefully. Like if a man attacks a woman, so
sure.
I'm glad to hear you're not saying no guns. You're just saying
no.
And so with that, when I turned 18, to support your point, one of the first things I did when I was 18, I went to a pawn shop, bought an AR-15.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I was
a
little surprised at how easy it was. See, I will say, I was a little surprised.
I think that it's I think that something like that too is worth having a conversation to say, at 18, isn't it wild that it's like you can buy an AR-15, but you can't go buy, a 24 rack of Coors Light.
It is wild.
You know what I mean? It's like
gun, yes, beer, no.
Yeah, that's it. So I think that there are. There just maybe needs to be some refinement to our gun laws a bit to help, because I would tend to think too, maybe you could agree to this, is that when you get people who are in those 18 early 20s, that age, there's a lot of development that happens. You're maturing a lot. There's a lot that happens.
I was a chimp.
So well, it takes time. You grow up, right? Yeah. So it's like, in a lot of ways, I could see merits to, with assault weapons and things of that nature, similar to how handguns are, where it's like maybe 21 is going to be more of an appropriate age limit for certain types of weapons. Now, I feel like, hunting, conservation, like those sort of, like that is something that's like a bedrock Americana, like that's not necessarily, I think, something that needs to be touched. But that's the thing that I think people are, I want to be really smart of how to go about fixing some of the issues with gun violence, because even some of the latest assassinations we've had, huge issues, right? Like it's horrible that's happening in America.
It is,
An assault rifle ban wouldn't have fixed that, because the weapon that was used in that case was a bolt action rifle that was so old it didn't even have a serial number. So there's certain types of weapons that it's like blanket bans. Like that's why I get a little hesitant at times, because it's like, is that going to affect the guy in the deer stand, or are we actually solving the problem? But we all can hopefully agree there's a real problem here that does need to be solved, and I think touching on sort of what you're talking about too, some of the areas where we have the highest crime, it's like, why do we have the highest crime? How are the schools? How are the support systems in the community? Is it a food desert? Like what are the your basics of just living in America in the year 2025? Like, is this a supportive environment and a supportive community, or is this going to be something where people might be more likely to start leaning towards gangs, or like something where they start falling in with more of that type? So I feel like there's ways that we can address gun violence and gun issues too, without even there's a lot of support. It's like the birth rate. There's a lot of things we can do to help fix that without trying to mix people together. I don't know.
Anything too extreme.
Right.
Yeah. I think even something simple, which I actually experienced with my last gun purchase, was like a year ago. I got a new handgun. Was a delay. Which funny enough, the lady at the shop actually told me, she's like, I think it's because of your last name, because it's Gonzalez. I'm like, really? But I'm like, she's like, I do a lot of these, and it's always the Hispanic. I'm like, that's weird.
That is
but
weird.
I was
random profiling.
Weird that she told me that, and
Random,
she runs the thing. I'm like, okay. But I'm like, but look at me, take a picture. Shaved head, But I do think even something like a delay could be good. Just like something super simple. Just like put, because do you really need it right now? And if you do, why?
Yeah. So, and incorporating background checks. It's like if you, not you, if someone beats their wife, I don't think you should have a gun, Or maybe
if you're like a sexual predator.
You shouldn't have a gun. Like there's certain things where it's like, I think that, that's what the common sense gun reform people talk about, It seems common sense to me. It does. It really does.
I think a lot of people, would agree with that. Again, and I hear the other side is, well, when you start this, it's going to lead to more, or who decides how to label people. It gets, it gets really nuanced, I think. But I do think I could get with that, and I think most people, Republican or Democrat, could agree to that.
I think it's common sense for a reason, but the whole notion of America to me is that whole forming a more perfect union, right? Like we're constantly going to be, it's an iterative process. We're always making improvements and trying new things. So if we can do something that helps, provide mental health, safe gun storage, basically support for people who are not letting people get guns who have background issues, things like that, we can start taking steps. And it's like people, I think, tend to look at issues and say what is going to solve gun violence? This would be this one thing, we're going to implement it and it's going to fix the whole thing.
Right.
If we could fix 10% of it with better mental health support and education support in cities, then it's 10% less, right? If we can take a further 10 or 15% out, and I'm just making up numbers, right? By saying people with these bad backgrounds can't go continue to purchase firearms, it's like this dude beat his wife and there's a chance he's going to continue to get more violent. We don't want him to have a gun. So, things like that. I think we can start making positive steps so that it's like we're at least trying something and not just sitting here and saying, that's a complicated issue, it's like we can't fix this. Like we can.
That's true. I think one of the things too, the reason I was interested to look into, way before this, I wasn't in his podcast, but per capita violence and things like that and death, like you're saying, I think the Second Amendment is kind of a, it's like a sexy topic in politics, But I think one of our biggest issues, which I'm sure you're aware of, you look like you're in pretty good shape, is
I don't know about that.
is at least low body fat, right?
Yeah, sure.
A big issue we're facing is the number one cause of death, period, is heart disease of various kinds.
Yes.
And if you look at our obesity rate, the strain that it puts on the healthcare system, the way that the government, which they're kind of going back on, I think, but the way that the food pyramid is kind of upside down.
Yes.
They're saying eat a bunch of carbs and grains and
Right.
not protein and fat. So
Yes.
I think that's a big one that could make a way bigger impact on mental. Oh, because you said mental health, and made me think of that. Because I think that they go hand in hand.
It's all related. Yeah,
think,
it's
like,
all related. Yes.
Eating well and being at least some level of in shape is really important. It'll help like your own health, death, the insurance, like hospital system. It'll put less strain on it.
Yes.
So I feel like that's a big one. Like, how do you feel about that? Or like, have you seen that? Like,
Oh yeah, well that's a huge topic.
It is.
The food system, and that touches the agricultural economy,
True.
people living in rural places, and
Also,
it touches
yeah.
all of us here too. Where a huge issue we have right now in agriculture in America is so much of our production goes towards non-food agricultural products. What I mean by that
is
is
that right?
when you think about, it's things that are exported. So, a lot like maybe you've heard about soybeans going to China or not going to China because China said no thank you because the tariff policy has been such a disaster. But, something like corn, we grow so much corn. It's going to everything from biofuels, ethanol, right? Like stuff we don't eat, feed for cattle. It gets exported all over the place too.
Well, subsidized by the government.
Yes, exactly.
So I do know about that.
That's exactly it. It's just like when we're
Yeah.
talking about agriculture in America and like fixing the food system, so much of it starts with where are those government dollars going and what are we incentivizing for people to grow? What do we want the food system to look like? And right now, so much of it is in the big industry
Corn syrup.
corn syrup. Exactly.
Horrible for you.
And so many of these products that you can extract from things like that and produce all sorts of these. It's the ultra processed foods, like all these things. So a large thing I think we can do to kind of help fix a lot of these, it is all related. It's funny. It's like you go on one tangent and then it's like 15. It's like, just like what you're saying though, if we can, and we can, instead of continuing with like the farm bill and incentivizing the corn, the soybeans, like these big industry producers, we can focus more on diversifying the crops that we're producing here domestically, where we're not exporting so much, but we're actually growing stuff that we can eat here without having to, like, great case in point. My wife, very nice, she got me a little jar of peaches, and she's like, she knows I like peaches. It was like, I could reseal it. I ate like half of them today with lunch, right?
Oh, nice.
Stupid story. But anyway, I was looking at the back of this jar, it says made in China.
Whoa.
Right? It's like, I was a product of China. I was shocked, right? You're like, these peaches were from over the whole Pacific Ocean,
Oh,
It's
wow.
like, that's kind of the problem, is it's like being able to, I think, incentivize more domestic production of things where we have smaller agricultural operations, which means more young people can get involved. They're more economically sustainable, where you're not just like, so much of our whole agricultural system is built on grow at all costs. And it's not just growing corn, it's growing acreage, 500, 1,000, 10,000 acre farms, where you've got to have $1 million combines, enormous equipment that gets into right to repair. There's so much in there, but you're right. It's like, if we can address the food system too and take an actual look at where the subsidies are going and who's getting the most of our tax money to produce this ultra processed stuff that's just bad for us,
The pesticides that are banned in most countries in
Europe.
Europe.
And Congress and Sam Graves and these Republicans, they want to do legislation right now too, where all of the pesticides like Roundup and like a lot of these big companies are making, it seeps into water. I believe it's Iowa has the highest cancer rates in the entire country. Surprising, right? It's because of the agriculture, the pesticides. We have rivers that come from Iowa and they come down into the North Missouri, the 6th district. It's like, you look at the cancer clusters, there's so much to it that is bad for us, and the industries that make it that way and why it's that way. But I think identifying that and understanding the problem, we can fix it, and we can figure out ways of incentivizing, locally grown, domestically produced, healthy crops that's like farm to table. I can go to, there's farmers markets and things like that, but obviously there's like grocery stores, and like so much of this is like the corporate consolidation of the food chain of who's controlling what.
Right.
Fun fact too with that, 4 meat packing companies control all, like if you have beef in North Missouri or just Missouri in general, you can sell it to one of 4 packing companies. So that means that 4 major corporations are controlling the price, controlling the market. Like when they're blaming cattle ranchers for the cost of beef, they're selling what they get for their cattle at the sale barn. It's like they don't control what they're packaging and selling it for. That there's a lot that feeds into that, pun intended, maybe with food.
That's a good one.
But yeah, you're right though. It's like there's so much that's related, and it's sort of just, in my opinion, there's these entrenched powers, entrenched interests that are really bleeding over from like the 1900s, right, from the 20th century. The way things have always been done, the big industries, the fossil fuels, this big so much of it, and it's like we have an opportunity right now, going into the 21st century, we're a quarter of the way through it now, to adapt and grow and figure out what is best for America in this century, because I think that we still see the powers that be from the last one who are carrying over into this one and trying everything they can, to maintain that power and control.
That's how it goes, and it's even better for, like you mentioned, the environment, the soil, like, because there are carbon neutral like systems for farming,
regenerative
when
farming,
when it's smaller.
Yes, and people are interested in that. People are really interested in that.
I think everybody would.
Your soil is healthier. You have there's
food tastes better.
Yes, it's health. It's so much of it is better for the environment. It's better for the people. So there's some things that almost make too much sense, but then you're like, why is this not the case? And then you dig into it, and then you look at exactly.
That's what I say.
Who's funding who?
All the money.
Yes, every time, every single time.
No, definitely. Yeah, it's that's a big one. Yeah, and I've been trying to get my meat only from the Uppercut, KC.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I have not been there yet, but I've seen them on social media. I've heard so many good. I can't wait to go there.
You gotta buy. Even just the meat. Like they sell the raw meat. They sell food. It's really good. But like I love their chickens. They get them from like this Amish community. So there's like nothing, and you can taste it. Yeah, like I got some drumsticks, and oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a lot of the issue of food production in America too. Is it's like when you get these mega meat packing corporations and things like that. Yeah. The USDA regulations means that if you wanted to start your own or try and do some sort of like a smaller scale or regional version of that, you can't, because you would have to meet the same criteria for a packing plant that these mega corporations are doing, Cargill or whoever is doing themselves. So it's like figuring out how to like regulate or like re-regulate or whatever you want to call it, just like break open the market, create competition. And exactly, I think people want to be able to know, where did this chicken come from, like where was this beef from, is it Brazil or is it just right up the road here in North Missouri, so
it makes a difference.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about that a little too. So, I was kind of interested because my thing with abortion, my interesting thing about the conversations around it is I'm not super strong. Obviously 9 months, like you said, is wrong, but I always hear when people talk, it's either like one or the other, instead of actually talking about where in the cycle, like what's the time, and kind of like what I was saying about the gender affirming thing, which you're saying maybe is worth a conversation just with the age thing. Kind of relating it to abortion.
Yes.
I don't ever hear people talk about, well, what do you think about, where's the line? Is it 2 weeks, 6 weeks, 10 weeks? You know what I mean? So, because obviously, you can say the super Christian Republicans would say none.
Right.
That's the extreme. It's no plan B.
Right.
No nothing. Yeah. If you're raped, have the baby. That's the extreme. But then the other extreme could, the terms can get late where they're viable on the other extreme side of the Democrats. So kind of, do you have an idea personally on if there should be a line, leave it to the states? That's how it is right now.
Yeah. So I think that it's a huge travesty that Roe versus Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court, because it made it so that we did have the right to, a woman's right to choose. So what bugs me the most out of the whole abortion topic is just that at the end of the day, what we're really talking about is whether or not the government is going to control someone's body or whether or not they're going to be able to.
I'm with you on that.
When it comes to abortion as well, I think that at the end of the day, like most people, I don't think anybody is pro-abortion. Like, right? It's like I am pro-choice in the sense of I think that people need to have the ability to control their bodies. However, I don't think anybody would agree that we want more abortions in America.
Sure.
And ironically, my understanding is when you have access to health care, whether that's Planned Parenthood or just the ability to be more on top of healthcare decisions around pregnancy and birth, it reduces abortions. So access reduces it. It's one of those counterintuitive things people don't think about.
That's actually a really good point, because when I had my first, I had my son when I was 17, and it was obviously not planned. Needless to say,
Lots of responsibility,
and a lot of thoughts go through your head with both me and his mother about is this something we should do, right? And with what you're saying, which I would actually agree with you a lot on, like having access, having the healthcare, having the information, because what they actually did, I think a lot of people think like, oh, you go in there and you talk about, you think about an abortion and they're like, yeah, they give you a cookie and they just do it right there.
It's kind of the hardest decision you'd make in your life.
They actually walk you through a whole process and like explain to you how it works, the life cycle of the baby, how the baby's already maybe feeling, and they actually like really like educate you on it so that to make sure you're making an educated decision. And after some of those processes, she decided, it's not my body, not to do that and to have the baby, which I'm super glad we did. But I was telling her it's up to you because you're the one that has to be pregnant, not me. So, but I was there with her as the dad, and they kind of walked us through that. And it's definitely not something they're like encouraging, like what you're saying. They're not like, yay, more abortions.
No one wants that.
They actually tell you kind of the reasons not to as well, and the reasons why it's okay, and then they kind of give you the process information. So I would agree with you having access.
Well, there's a few things too with it too. So it's like there was a lady, I think she was in Georgia or something like this. Within the last few months, she had a baby, and I believe she was like in an accident or something. She was basically in a vegetative state. They kept her on life support and basically used her as an incubator, right, to bring the baby to term. So it's like that it's very dehumanizing, I think, because it's like in a lot of ways, I think people see women as like a vessel, right, to produce the baby, but it's like that. So that's a conundrum.
Wouldn't she want the baby to live though?
I don't know. Well, that's the thing though. It doesn't matter to some people.
Probably she would.
Most likely,
if you survey a woman and say you die.
But when you remove that ability to have that choice,
I see.
It's not part of the conversation anymore, right?
So they should have just let the baby. Or what are you saying? I'm confused.
I don't know. I'm saying that I believe that there, and that was probably a bit of a confusing point. But what I'm saying is that people are basically, it's almost like they're treating women as like these incubators, and they exist to produce babies, whether or not they want to, because you also get places that don't care about rape, don't care about incest,
and those, I think,
you're going to carry them through. That's the thing. We say obviously, but that is not an obviously to a lot of people.
That's kind of an extreme scenario, right?
Well, we were just talking about transgender people assaulting in bathrooms. So
exactly.
Yes. So correct. So, but also, getting to fetal viability and also just like whether or not you're pregnant. So, as you probably know too, you've got kids. So when you first find out that you're pregnant, you're going to be at 6 weeks, 8 weeks at the earliest, because it's the first date of your last period, so you have a whole month where nothing's happening. So when they say like, first few weeks or like, that's one of the ones that bugged me the most, honestly, about Sam Graves, who I'm running against in Congress. We voted on Amendment 3 here in Missouri this past election. We protected a woman's right?
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
And the Republican legislature in Jefferson City said no. They overruled it, right? Really? Literally afterward. They have overruled the will of the people, and they have said
know about that.
They did. And at the federal level, Sam Graves, he co-sponsored something called the Life at Conception Act this year, which we in Missouri, like this is the thing that bugs me the most. They said leave it up to the states when they canceled Roe versus Wade, right? Leave it up to the states. Well, that's exactly what they did. And even in Missouri, which people say, oh, it's so Republican, right? It's really not. It's much more purple than people think.
It is. People are pretty in the middle.
We voted. We said, okay, we did it.
Right.
And that's not good enough. They want to overrule us at the state house level, and they want to overrule us with this Life at Conception Act, where they literally say at the moment of conception, that is when you get full legal rights and abilities as a full person, right? You don't have any way. If you have a microscope and you're in the uterus, you don't have a way of knowing what the moment of conception is, right? Mm-hmm. It is a blanket abortion ban. And so the issue is, it's like, the way I see it, the big issue is that you don't always know when you are pregnant, right? So if you say life at conception, you have no way of knowing when that is. And if you put like a 6-week or an 8-week or a 20-week, right? And you say after 20 weeks, you can't. Well, here's another issue. People don't always know they're pregnant, which sounds ridiculous, but you don't always know.
Pounds,
okay, there's a variety of reasons. You don't always know is the thing. Or here's another one too: is insurance. Access to insurance and access to healthcare. You might not have access to a doctor, and you might not be able to actually go in, or something gets delayed where you've got to wait for an appointment, right? Like I called my doctor. I want to set up an appointment. Well, they can't see me for a month. Well, I'm at 12 weeks right now, and that would put me at 16 or something. So it's like weeks will continue to pass no matter what. And our system overall is not necessarily built to be like quick and agile enough, and people don't necessarily have access to healthcare enough to be able to necessarily know all the facts and be able to act. But when you're going to get already penalized and criminalized for abortion at these relatively arbitrary weak limits, then you're kind of assuming that a lot of people have access to things that they might not. And so that's sort of my biggest issue with it. So
yeah, just give the access for the ability, for the sake of the education, the knowledge, because they're not these, abortion like party zones.
Well, no, they're not. Right. I mean, nobody at the end of the day, nobody wants abortion, right? We want access to it. It's like nobody wants someone to scream fire, and like do abuse free speech.
It's like,
but
whiskey,
we have to be able to have that access. You got to have your rights, know.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I'm with you on that. So you're saying it should be, ideally it would be, federally allowed. Mm-hmm. Now, do you have a specific week, obviously you said not 9 months, do you have a stance on when in the cycle it shouldn't be okay, or not specifically?
I mean, I think that if it's viable, especially, then
I mean
that's kind of,
if it could live outside the womb.
Yeah, then, but so here's the problem though: is if I say, and for me personally, I mean, we've had all 4 of our kids, and we've never, gone through an abortion process as a family, but the thing is that and for me personally, I probably I wouldn't necessarily want to, that's I would want to keep it, but and that's a crazy hypothetical. But here's another issue too: is it's fetal viability. You can discover that your unborn is non-viable relatively late in the game, or you can have a complication that would either injure or kill the mother that you can find late in the game too if she delivers the baby. So it's you get into these situations where if you start cutting things off, you are literally cutting people off from the ability to make their own decision to save their own lives, because you have said the life of this unborn is worth more than the life of the mother. That's what bothers me.
Put a caveat. So you could say this is the limit, however, right? So you can have a nuance. You can have a nuance.
You can, yes. I mean,
rule.
Yes. And I mean, like I said, my daughter came at 34 and a half weeks, and there's, that's early enough where there was worries about whether or not her lungs were going to be fully developed enough for her to breathe. She was in an incubator for a period of time. They had to put the heat lamps on her and the certain colored lights and it's a whole...
So somewhere in the late 20 week, early 30 week is maybe around the average for... viability.
Yes, I mean I think that's around there. Yeah, okay. but I mean to me it's so much to try and put some sort of a legislative cap on it also creates an issue where you're basically making a one size fits all solution to something that can impact literally half of the population of humanity. If you're able, that's the thing that's wild about pregnancy too, that I learned as my wife went through it 4 times, is it's if you have a symptom, you have a lot of headaches, or you have something happens, during your pregnancy, chances are, since half the population can go through something like this, a lot of other people have had similar symptoms, it's there's so many things can happen when you have something that so many people go through, that when you start putting these limitations on it, you are literally putting people in a position where they are no longer controlling themselves. And that's where I have my biggest bone to pick with it too.
I hear you, because I definitely like get your perspective. I don't necessarily feel super strong. Like, I don't have my own policy I would write or whatever.
Sure, yeah.
But I definitely do see what you're saying. Like, I definitely think I agree in general about it does get really sketchy when you start putting legislation that has to do with a woman. So I do think that. So essentially, you're saying leave it to the doctor, but between the doctor and the mother.
Yes.
Essentially.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can see
That's
that.
what it should be.
Because we're not going to sit here and assume, these doctors are evil. Or like you said, it's obviously especially as the baby gets bigger, it's a painful process. Like, it's not a good time. Needless to say.
Say I get into Congress. Why do I need to be in the room? I'm not, right? This is figurative. It's like, why do I need to be in the room helping them make a decision? I don't, as a government, right? Like, it's got to be, that's going to be one of, hopefully, the most joyous parts of someone's life as they're bringing a new child into the world, but it might not be because of a variety of situations. And I do not think the government has a place in that. And I also... When the Republicans say, like, the Democrats are for 9-month abortions, no, nobody is. No, that's murder. No, it's not. No one is for that.
That's fair.
And to say, like, it's such a mischaracterization, and I don't know, it's just, that would be like me going out and saying, if you are against any and all gun regulation, you are for the murder of children. No one is going to hopefully be for the murder of children, right? Yeah. But you get what I'm saying?
Sides, but not from you, but
right.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting one. Yeah, definitely. Oh, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on that we kind of brought up, though. We talked about abortion a little bit. I don't know if I can think of anything else, though.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah. Man, it was really good to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. This is awesome.
I feel like my goal of my podcast really is like, you see these things online, you see these labels, Democrat, Republican. Yeah. Like, I'm labeled as independent or whatever. But I think people are just people. And I think a lot of times you can get a Democrat and a Republican to agree on a lot of things. Like, the devil's in the details. And I like one of my favorite things I saw was actually looking back at an Obama speech, a debate with Obama and, who was it? I was the child at the time. I can't remember.
Maybe it was Romney or one of them.
I think it was Mitt Romney. Yeah,
McCain, maybe if it was earlier.
And they're basically saying, like, we both want the same thing. We want the betterment of America. We just disagree about how to get there.
Yes.
And I think that's important for people to know that just because you're a Democrat or just because someone's a Republican doesn't mean that you have to hate each other.
I completely agree. I could not agree more. It's like we're all neighbors, It's like we live in the same communities. We share, so many of us, we share the same values, Exactly. That's one thing that I feel like is disappointing with sort of the political dialogue, and it is on both sides. We'll say it. It's like, well, if Trump gets elected, it's the end of democracy, right?
True.
And I hear that so often from the Democratic Party. No, it's not. It's not the end of democracy. And you know why I know it's not is because I still live in it, you still live in it, our kids live in it, and the idea is that this is going to keep going for a while. So the people who start talking in these like nihilistic terms, it's over.
The right was saying it too about come on, they're both saying.
Oh my gosh, it's like it's all
they're
you
both
hear.
saying.
Yeah, and it's
guys,
it's ridiculous.
It's hard to have a conversation when that's your
It's like
first thing.
Well, and then it's like I'm trying to I'm running for Congress and I want to figure out how to talk to the most people and listen to people. But like the thing is if I'm going to go out and talk to young people, which I've been doing. I went to Mizzou and I talked with a group of young Democrats there. It was a great conversation, So it's like when I'm talking with young people, that's one of the things they hear a lot is from their leaders. Oh, democracy, it's basically over anyway if this guy wins. So why? But then it's like you're killing your engagement with your youth and the next generation. The American dream. It's like, what is next? Like, how can we participate in this American dream if you guys are already saying it's over? It's not over, We can do so many great things with America. Like, I feel like America is such a great, like, it's full of so much greatness and potential, and to act like it's when we have these old guys in the White House and these old people leading us, I think it feels like it's stagnant and old and like capped out, and it's not. It's like we're still just getting started, And we've got so much potential potential. I mean,
That's
the technologies that we have, the healthcare we have. I mean, we have wonders that people for the whole of human history would have dreamed about, And here we are. We experience these every day,
Yeah.
And we live in an amazing time. So we just got to keep building on that, and like make it the best for everybody. That's the whole purpose with this. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wish you good luck on your campaign.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely shoot. Unless Graves gives me an interview, I'll have to go out and vote for you, man.
Yeah. Well, good luck getting an interview from him. Yeah.
Talk to him. As soon as he said that, I'm like, oh, probably not. So.
Yeah.